Welcome to Pieces of the Puzzle. It is January 2026, a brand new year. And our guest today is Mary Halliday. Mary is a props supervisor. And so we're going to talk today about what a props supervisor does, how Mary got where she is today, and things that she's learned along the way. Mary, welcome.
Hi, Jenna. How are you?
Good, good. Um, just to give a brief rundown on some of the things that Mary has worked on. Stranger Things, The First Shadow, The Hunger Games on stage, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I know we're going to want to talk about that one. Moulin Rouge, the musical, Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club, Kiss Me Kate, Clueless the musical, Unicorn, Fear of 13, Anything Goes, My Fair Lady, The King and I, Aspects of Love, 101 Dalmatians, Fiddler on the Roof. They keep going. Waitress the musical, An American in Paris. Um, so many more too. Carole King, Book of Mormon, South Pacific, so many shows. And each one I'm sure comes with its own challenges, and so we'll talk about some of those
Yeah,
today.
absolutely.
Um, but first, just a little background. Um, Mary was my student a quarter of a century
So
ago.
long ago. So long ago.
Oh, but after you left Millikan, tell us a little bit about your journey um, from college
From
to,
2004 to now. Blech. Uh,
yeah.
so I graduated 2004 from Millikan. I think it was a BA in theater. I can't quite remember what I had, but I basically studied stage management while I
Yeah.
was there. Stage managed lots of shows, that was kind of the path I was on. I after college, started on touring. So I did about 6 years of touring. Nothing big, nothing spectacular, nothing like, whatever. A lot of non-union, moving into some sort of network shows, a couple First Nationals, but I didn't get to do Phantom or anything like that. Um, Somewhere in that, sort of within a couple years into that, I realized when we sort of had the moment to go union, from non-union touring to union touring, and I was working as a stage manager, and I said, I realized then that sort of when you become a stage manager in that union world, you don't get to do as much fun stuff. Like I really liked running the deck. I really liked sort of being in the action of the show. And stage managers are like there were torches and like paging curtains, and I was like, that's not what I want to do. So at that point, I kind of moved into props, which was sort of works on tour because you're not making props, you're not whatever, you're just moving them around the country and making sure that they're fine. So that's what I did. So that's where I left it. Somewhere around 2007, I met a Brit. Just dropping that in. And then in 2009, well, in 2010, I ended up moving to London, like after we had got married and had a baby and did all this stuff. So I then moved to London in 2010, which is where I've been since. So now, like, 20, what is that, 16 years now? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Um, so yeah, so moved over here, had a baby. Well, had a baby when I came, ended up having some more kids, did all of that. But in all of that as well, I started going into sort of prop supervision over here, which is a different thing from touring props because now I'm sort of dealing with the show from creation and moving into that, into the theater, into the first time doing it, into whatever. I was lucky enough to get sort of hooked up through my husband with a woman who'd been working for, at that point, 15 years in the business over here. So her and I started working together. I was her assistant, then we were co-supervising, then we were taking on our own shows. And that's just how I don't know, got my
networked
jobs. Like that's just how
through
I
that,
did it. Like that
right?
was, yeah.
Through
Um,
career.
and in all of that, I was obviously juggling family and kids
Right.
and babies and all of that sort of stuff, which is, not easy, but also doable and, is a thing. So
Right.
don't think that you can't. So yeah, so that's where I've been now. And about, it's been like 4 years ago now. Me and my business partner split up. So now I'm just on my own and I'm here and being me
Yeah.
and doing.
Excellent. That's a good recap.
Yeah, there we go. Great.
Because I do think so often people wonder, like, how do you get into this business? Or how do you get into, as an American, working in London, how do you get
Yes.
there, right?
Yeah.
And it is actually through being married to
It's
someone.
to be married. It's not like,
Right,
not for everybody. There
right.
have
That's
been
yeah,
times when I would not recommend, but it's
absolutely.
it has worked for me. And, because he's in the business as well, he obviously was able to put me in contact, and we
Right,
live in London. It's not like I've moved to like, Norwich or like
right,
Scotland, so I'm in the heart of it. I'm here. I have these connections. And then sort of
right.
through that, I then made my own connections.
And,
And
and brought the skill sets with you. I
yeah,
mean,
and
there's
brought
that,
and brought me with it,
right.
which
Years of
uh
experience. So yeah.
yeah, and I think, like I am still, even though I've been here forever, I'm still very American in a lot of ways. And so the
Uh-huh.
American, I don't know, me showing up into a British theater is sometimes hilarious. Just,
So
yeah.
let's talk about you being American in the
Hmm.
British theater. Working on Stranger Things: The First Shadow,
Hmm.
which if folks don't know, is the stage show
Yes.
that is sort of the prequel to, not sort of, it is the
Pretty cool.
prequel
Yeah.
to the Netflix
The
Stranger
TV
Things
series. Yes.
series, right? So how is it being an American in that situation, right? With a bunch of
Well, that was great, actually. I mean, that was really great. When I
right,
first found out that I got the show, I was like, oh my God, it's gonna be the 80s. I'm like, I'm gonna get to do my childhood. Like I was like ready for it. Then I found out it was the 50s and I was like, whatever, it's fine. No, that one is really interesting. It was an all British creative team. Well, the set designer was German, so there's that. Um, Obviously still written by Americans though, because written by the Duffers slash Kate Tree Fry, who did lots of series 3, 4, and 5 as well.
uh-huh,
Um, yeah, it's hard because you get these design, part of my job is taking the designers' kind of ideas and then how do I make them realize, especially on creating these kind of new shows where there is no, that one in particular was
uh,
really tricky, which we should probably come back to on. We had quite a long kind of workshop and like a like unheard of amount of workshop time, rehearsal time, changes, alteration, whatever. So things were being created sort of on the fly. Um, I thought it was great because being American and there were things that would come in and I'd be like, it can't be that. We had an issue with jars and the British, whatever company put a jar called a Kilner jar in there, which is like basically the British version of a ball jar. And I was like,
oh
they need to be a ball jar. Like that, do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
but like no one else in the room would have thought that or even, but I know
right.
that some audience member is going to look at that and be like, that is
That's not
wrong.
that's not American. Yeah,
That is wrong.
yeah,
And then,
yeah,
whatever. So,
right.
yeah, and there was lots of stuff as well I did. I think the thing, my like, I don't know, thing's probably gonna sound really dumb, but anyway, this is my like greatest thing I found, and I should share this resource with everybody if I can find it again. Anyway, I found a website which scanned in, and you might know about this, every single J.C. Penney's and
Yes,
Sears catalog for
yes,
like ever. Okay, yeah. So
yes.
it was amazing. So there was like this moment in the show where they were like, we need a bed for Henry. And I was like, okay, well, this family would have bought it from the Sears catalog. They would have done,
Yep,
whatever.
right.
So I just went onto that resource and was
Yeah.
like, here are the beds that were sold
Here's what
two
they
to
should
three
look like.
years before where the show is set. This is what they would have bought. This is what it would have looked like. And now that's like the bed that's in the show. And it's, but I
Yeah,
feel like that was this thing that like me knowing, being like, they
right,
would have bought it at
right.
Sears. Everybody bought everything from Sears. That's like
Right.
the thing, and you
Yeah,
take it for granted that everyone here doesn't know that
right.
information.
Yeah. That's the we lived out of the J. I lived grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere. We lived out of
Yeah,
the JC
same.
Penney
Yeah,
catalog. Like we
yeah.
ordered everything from
It's
Penny's.
the
You
same
know.
in Christmas and like
Yep.
circling the thing. Like it's all,
Yep.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
I know.
It's,
I know. And then we got a catalog, and my son called it a magazine you can order things out of. And I was like, oh my God.
that is not, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
Oh,
even
children.
how
Um,
things change, not even yeah, country to country, but over time, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And the country
um
to country thing too, though, that like,
yeah,
when I now do shows, because I do shows that are set in England all the time, and I've had to like I've had to learn about things that were popular in British homes and in British culture and in
yeah,
British normal people life in the same way that JC Penney's and Sears was normal in our lives.
right.
I had to learn what those things are to
Uh-huh.
be able to like effectively put them in shows or make sure that I'm choosing things that are whatever, correct. In the same way that I did
Right.
that. Now I've had to learn that. So
Right.
that,
That I think that curiosity is so important
yeah,
in that process. Like, what
yeah,
is it? Why is it?
yeah.
What makes it
Why did they
different?
do this? What are
Yeah.
these weird cultural sort of things that you need to make sure that you tie into all of this? So
Yeah.
anyway, so go back to Stranger Things. Yes, that was
Yeah.
yeah. So being the only American in the room, basically, besides,
Right.
and also the writer and I had a lot of uh like we had a lot of like, she'd be like, what about that? And I'd be like, it wasn't like that. It was, you know what I mean? We had a lot of
Yeah.
moments where her and I would like have these moments about being the only Americans in the room and just like, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm sure that's a yeah, you brought great perspective to that,
and she was, I wasn't the only one that talked weird. It was great.
Right. Well, and especially because, right, Hawkins, Indiana, you grew up in Illinois,
It was like
not that
literally my town.
different of
Yes.
a, yeah,
Yeah.
of an
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for sure, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. That's really cool. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll talk more things, more about Stranger Things in a minute. Um, I think that is an interesting idea. Being the sort of the first what, right? There is no if you're doing Mary Poppins, right, you're like, well, in the original
It's been
Broadway
made.
show, right, the
Yeah.
chimney sweeps are dancing with
Yep.
the chimney brooms,
There are
right,
set things. There are set things that are forever
that
embedded
are
in the show.
forever the expectation,
Yeah.
right? um Talk a little bit about that. How do you, the things that are set expectation versus the making this a new and fresh production?
Um, well, I don't know if I've ever done a show. We'll say this. I don't think I've ever done a show that had that level of set expectations. Then we were trying to redo them. That does happen. That's happened in Les Mis.
Right.
That's happened in Oliver. That's happened on a lot of Cameron McIntosh shows. Like
Yeah.
that has happened. I've never done that. I've done more of the sort of this is the first time we
The
do it.
first
And
one.
then people like copy those concepts or those ideas or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it is an interesting thing because it's how much do you hold on to and how much do are you like, this is my idea, whatever, or how much do you say,
Right.
I've just put this out into
Right.
the world and it's for the world now. You know, it's the thing now.
Which
So
is a wild. I mean,
it's a wild thing. It is a
right,
wild
because
thing to think about, actually. Yeah.
right, because sometimes, I mean, sometimes those choices are, well, because of availability, of time, of right,
Literally, like just because I don't have anything else.
right,
Here's
yeah,
the show. That's it.
and
Like
suddenly that
it's
is,
yeah, and
you
it
know,
becomes the thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's very interesting. I just watched a video. Somebody posted on like social media this video of some high school production of Harry Potter. So I was like sort of going through it and and it's like, well, you've got a bed and you've got a chair.
yeah,
Nothing like what we had originally, but like that scene
yeah,
did have a bed and a chair, and there you are. You've got that now. And that's
right,
quite cool that was sort of, we ended up sort of coming up with that
yeah,
on this. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Um, let's talk about Harry Potter. Um,
Hmm.
so originally, right, for the West End production, the London
Yeah.
production, two shows,
Two
right?
shows, still two shows.
Yes, and as it then moved to the US and around the world, right? One
Yeah.
production, one show.
One show.
Um,
That has
so
now actually been cut down again to a touring version show.
right.
Yeah.
Um so but that was part of the plan early on, right? We knew there
I
would
mean, I
indeed
don't know if it was
probably
part of the,
be more
I don't know
than
if it was
one.
always part of the plan, but it has been the plan that has played out as the best options
Right,
for the
right.
shows. So it's,
So when
and it's
you
worked out
are
and I think it's great. So yeah.
right, so when you are designing for, okay, we've got this show, but we hope it also goes to New York, and we
Yeah.
hope it also, right, I don't, goes to Chicago, and it
Those
tours, and
it.
it blah
Yep.
blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah, right? How do you think about sourcing for suitcases?
Yeah. Well, that is very good. So we did not think about that on Harry Potter to start with. So that show in London, and still is to a degree, although it's a bit of a mix now, was just like vintage suitcases, and we sort of didn't know what they wanted to do with them, like because we created this whole show, we sort of had ideas, but it all evolved as we were doing it. So we just put in 200 vintage suitcases of
Uh-huh.
various styles and color, whatever. And some were filled and some were not, whatever. Um, they obviously then became their things. We struggle with things like, oh, we need three of these exact cases. How are
For
we going to find
tracking.
three of
Yeah.
these vintage cases again? This is crazy. So then when it went to New York, and we knew that we couldn't do that, and they weren't, you know, they don't look great. They weren't like the best version of themselves that they could have been. So when we went to New York, we then created basically a made set of suitcases. So
Uh-huh.
we created basically timber boxes. So they're strong. You can sit on them, you can whatever. I have this company who they recover cases and suitcases and stuff like that. So we did that. We worked through it. Ended up like the original Broadway two-part version, I think had like 124 suitcases in it or something like that. Each of them, well, most of them differently. There was a couple duplicates in there, but most of them were different. So it was sorting all that out, doing all that, whatever. And then that then became the sort of future of the show, and that became what we could do. And then it was just like, oh, you need suitcase 22. There you go. It's here.
Yeah.
And they were uniform, and it meant we could send them, we then sent them we sent them to New York, we sent them to San Francisco, Australia, Japan, Germany. I think that's it.
I knew there were a bunch of, I was like,
Yeah,
I know there
anyway,
are a bunch
so
of
but then it became this kind of
shows.
universal thing
Yeah.
because they were so essential in the show and they had to be right and they had to work in all the moments that they needed to work in and all of that kind of stuff. You couldn't risk it being sourced locally. You couldn't risk it not being the right, the visuals of
Right.
that show. There's a reason why it won all the awards because it's visually stunning and you just can't like throw in a hot pink suitcase anywhere. And you know what
Right.
I mean? Like it has to
Right.
maintain that sameness
Right.
on it.
Well, and by the nature of right, vintage, right? They're like handles are gonna break
Yeah,
and
they're shit. Like yeah,
like,
they're shit. And you
yeah.
can't find them again. And and I do have shows with vintage suit long running shows with vintage suitcases, and they drive me crazy. They're
Yeah.
literally the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I do think more about it. Since that show, I do think more about what I am choosing. And if I know a show has a future life, I will choose things that I know that I can get again. And I know, on Stranger Things, we made
Yeah.
choices. You make the choice to build more. Like I could have found a bed for that kid. Like I could have found that bed, but
Uh-huh.
instead I was like, no, we're going to make that bed and we're going to have a drawing of that bed. And then we can then do that bed again and we can, all of that stuff.
Right.
And I know it's right. So yeah. But then some shows, aren't going to have a feature life and you can get the lovely wrought iron, whatever. You can like
Right,
get the
right, right. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
it's just knowing that.
yeah. And that's always a gamble either way. If you think like, the show's
Yeah.
probably
I mean, I've
limited
done
run, right?
shows,
And
done shows
then
that were supposed to be the big new hit.
right,
Yeah.
right.
No.
And shows
So,
that are sort of little quiet sleeper, and
yep.
suddenly
And
like,
then they blow up into something and
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
You're not always right, but there are the ones that are going to be, there are the ones that there are the ones that, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, I said we've talked about that. So you're not building suitcases yourself, right?
absolutely not.
You are
Absolutely not.
right,
No.
right. You are finding um manufacturers or shops or whatever
Yep.
that can do these things. How do you go about doing that?
Uh, well, obviously some of that is just knowing people and meeting people and, finding people. I've found, lots of them come from recommendations. There's not loads of prop supervisors in the West End. There's not
Oh,
loads of people who specialize in prop making, prop furniture making, whatever. So it is quite a small list that you pull from, and you do get because I don't have there are some supervisors here who have like proper workshops, so they have their own carpenters, they've got
uh-huh.
whatever. That's not, I don't do that. I can't, like, not responsible enough for that, so can't do that. So I'm now pulling from so I pull from a pool of freelancers, and sometimes it's like, bum fight with another supervisor and getting in first, and
Right.
it's
Who's got
like,
time? Who's
yeah,
got
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like there is a little bit of that going as well. And, careful not to poach people and not, whatever. There's like a sort of a bit of that. So yeah, and then sometimes you just like find people, like, you find a thing on eBay that you're like, oh, that, you've made this, and then turns out to be this person that's gonna help you through loads more things. So it sort of comes from lots of different places. But I'd say it's mostly word of mouth. It's mostly coming out. It's mostly, working with other people, sort of coming through I don't know, the channels, I guess, that
Yeah.
you would come
Yeah.
through, having gone to drama school or art school or something,
Yeah.
something along those lines, and then getting jobs and meeting them and, you know,
Yeah.
sort of that thing. Yeah.
I think it also takes from your end though, it takes a certain amount of determination and stick to itiveness, maybe,
Yeah.
to like, okay, I have to figure this out. I have to
Yeah. It
find it.
sucks
I have
sometimes.
to um I have to, I don't know, hit the flea market. I have to go to
Yeah.
the good shop.
There's an
I have to.
enormous amount of logistics that sort of falls back on me in terms of, you know, getting the information, getting the show, getting the lists, getting the this, what's required, where are we doing it,
Right.
who's building it, where's the design, who's making this, what material, to a degree, what materials are being used to make it, because obviously I have the idea, I have the information in my head that I've got from
Uh-huh.
the designer and everything else. So now I need to sort of pass it on to various people. And there's a lot of like, who is the best person for this job? Because that's a kind of another thing, is that people are specialized, and this guy does furniture really well, but this guy does sort of bigger metal sculpture work better, or and it works with sewing,
Uh-huh.
soft goods, and everything. It's like it's finding the correct person, because if you put the
Right.
wrong person into the job, then, well, that's like your problem. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that doesn't make your life
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
easier. So you just, yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of like transportation as well. Like, that's a massive part of my job, is like
Yeah. Right.
just booking, making sure that this gets from point A to point B, and this has been ordered, and now it needs to get delivered to here. And who's this,
Uh-huh.
my Amazon, like, uh whatever addresses thing. There's like 1,000 addresses of various
Yeah.
places that I've sent stuff, and doing all that. So yeah, it is quite, um yeah, it is more like, it's less creative. Like, I feel like it's
Logistics.
less creative on the day to day
Yeah.
than it is, because it is so logistical. And obviously, once we go into the theater and when we're making these choices, or when the maker calls me and is like, do I don't know. Do I bevel this edge, or do I not bevel this edge? Like, that's
Yeah.
maybe a creative decision that I get to make. And obviously, when we're
Yeah.
in theater and we're in tech and we're, you know, throwing things around and doing all that, like, there's a bit more creative to that. But most of the time, I'm literally just like WhatsApping my transport people,
Uh-huh.
paying invoices, billing invoices, like trying to keep the money coming in and going out, and everybody's happy. And yeah.
Yeah. And how do you track all of these, um what needs to be here when, and what's in shipping, and what's in production? What, you're not keeping all of that
In
right
my
here.
head, I mean, a lot of it. Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah. It's
Oh
bad.
gosh.
It's bad.
Oh my gosh.
It's bad. I do have systems. I do have, like, I use Zero as the accounting system, and that works great. And I've, done that. I'm also obsessed with Airtable. Have you ever
Oh,
heard of
okay.
it?
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
obsessed. I'm obsessed with Airtable in terms
Yep.
of, um, so I discovered that going back to doing the Harry Potter suitcases, I discovered
Uh-huh.
Airtable in that, and it was like, I could make this database which had, what vinyl did it use? What size is it? What color handle does it have? What's the hardware required? How many, who did
Yes.
it? Because there were multiple people who did these people did these cases, these, so it has it. And then, all every bit of information. And now, 10 years on now from that
Yeah.
show. Like, I had to make one for Tokyo the other day, and I literally just went up and I was like, could I please have an X6? And I've ordered this and I've done this and whatever. And it was, so yeah.
Yeah.
So again, like, on the long running shows, you put that sort of information together and keep it together. But on the day to day, yeah,
Whew.
yeah. Yeah. So that's probably not very helpful to any of you students. Be better. Like, do a better thing. Come up with like a good
Right.
thing, and like, yeah, make a better plan than
Yeah.
me. I do like Microsoft To Do. I do
Yeah.
like that. I do like, in tech, I am 100%. I sort of, when I sort of start working on a show, and we're getting closer into rehearsals, into tech, and we start getting lists together, I will make a list. It's in like Word. It's so basic. But I
Uh-huh.
do like a printed out list going into the theater every day in tech, like
There is a
categorized. Yeah, and a printed out list because then I can
Right.
cross it off.
Love crossing things off of a list.
Love crossing things off, and then I
Yep.
update it, reprint it for the next day, and like there's
Yep.
like a little bit of like,
Yep.
and everybody, but also it works for the good for my sort of team because everybody kind of can see everything that's in my head, and
Uh-huh.
it's sort of some things have names next to them, so they get on with that, and then they'll look at the list and they'll be like, Mary, what's this? And I'll be like, oh, yes. So about that, here's what we need to do. And do you know what I mean? Like, so then they sort of make me accountable. It's like a bit
Right.
of sort of shit, but
Yeah.
it's very basic and not cool and probably not what you're looking for in
That's,
that question.
I mean, I think it's important to have systems that work for
It's
you,
just, yeah, and
whatever that is.
I've tried different systems, and every time I go back to a piece of paper printed in front of
I
me,
think a piece of paper is fine. The keep it in your head terrifies me, but
you keep it in your head. Yeah, it does. I mean, that's why the lists are good. And
So, yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's not great.
right. Um, so you've got shows like a Harry Potter, right, that are running for, you said 10 years now,
It'd be
right?
10. Yeah, I think we opened in 2016. So I think this is 10 years.
And you continue to have a commitment to those shows in terms of
Upkeep,
maintenance, right?
maintenance. Yeah.
Um, and at the same time, you continue to do new shows.
Hmm.
How are you managing those two
Also, not very well, Janet. No.
priorities on the daily? You
This
know
is
what I
not what
mean?
you're hoping this is going to be. Um,
Uh, Honest answers are good answers, you know?
yeah, that becomes quite an issue. Some shows, again, shows like Harry Potter, they've been running long enough. There's very little that they need. All their stuff is fine. It's, they have the tools to do paint touch-ups and, whatever. It's completely fine. Um, Other shows are a bit more demanding. Other shows that are maybe not as reliable. The stuff in there is not reliable. The wear and tear that particular show that those props get is greater than some other shows. So it all kind of it depends on the show. Like Potter never calls. Hunger Games calls like twice a day currently at this point. So that's a problem. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. Obviously,
Right,
like when I'm in tech and when I'm really focused on a show, it is quite hard to get because also again, like I was saying about makers, if I've got all my like makers working with me on one show and then another
right.
show calls, I'm like, oh shit, now you have to like leave and like I
Oh
need, you know what I
gosh,
mean? Now
we
I need you
need
to
to
do
go fix
that
that. Yeah,
and come back again. I have been known to do lots of sort of double dipping where I'll be on site for a show, working on another show, getting stuff in, like
yeah,
just kind of yeah, just like throwing sort of everything at it. Yeah, again, that is, I do have a to-do list for that. I do kind of keep a running list of what I need to do. Sometimes I'm not on it totally, and I feel bad for it. And if any of them are watching this, I'm very sorry. Uh, I'm not on it, but I do. Yeah, so like my January, because last year was so crazy, the sort of January, I don't really have anything until February. So this now is all just dealing with other shows. So I've got two people in Moulin Rouge on Tuesday doing a load of notes, getting stuff taken away, getting stuff, all this kind of
right.
stuff. None of them are suffering because I'm not doing it. They're all kind of fine and running and it's not stopping the show, but it could be better. So now I'm
Yeah,
that. And yeah.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
is very tricky. It is very, and again, it's more logistics. It's like, oh, you need this made, right? I'll order it, get it sent to you, get it do this. I'm
yeah,
not necessarily in the theater with them every day.
yeah.
It's be done remotely, but occasionally I show up and show my face and like,
That's good.
yeah,
Well, and I think some of that showing up, like it's like you're still a priority. I'm still interested. I'm
still
still
interested.
engaged.
Yeah, and we all have
I haven't
WhatsApp
completely
groups, so
jobbed it
it's
all out.
yeah, and like we're all on WhatsApp groups, so sometimes I'm like, oh, I just need to text this stage management team, but just like, hey, I'm doing this, or this is being delivered, or
Yeah.
just like it's just like as long as you just sort of maintain that
Communicate,
communication. Yes, yes, as long as you
right?
maintain the communication, even if you're bullshitting a little bit, like you can get through it.
A little bit. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about last year. You
Mm.
did how many shows last year?
I think I did 12 or 13. I was trying to count. I did a lot. I averaged like just so I think it was like a show a month that I
Yeah.
did, or just over a show a month. Not all of them were real shows. Some of them were workshops, which is another
Mhm.
thing that I am involved in, that's like
Yeah.
another thing that is in this
Yep.
kind of world where, it is a workshop and you're like, oh, it's just a workshop. But actually, it takes the same significant amount of time, some of them that you would have.
Uh-huh.
You have to be there,
Yeah.
you have to be present. So yeah, I did some plays, I did some musicals, I did opened Moulin Rouge tour and the UK tour, did that. And then obviously the big one was Hunger Games, which
Uh-huh.
was a significant portion of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah, it was quite a big one. It was quite a
Yeah.
complicated one. It was like nothing I'd ever faced before, so it challenged me in a lot of ways, uh which is weird. It's something that I like have been, I think about in my sort of career is that at this point you could like there's not really a show you could throw at me that I couldn't probably sort out and be fine with it and whatever. So it's like where do you find the challenges? Where do you find, how do
Yes.
you keep like sort of being better and not being
Yeah.
better? But do you know what I mean? Like just sort of
Yeah. Well,
moving up and feeling like you're not just like, meh. Um, this one definitely did it. Like I'd
keep
say
engaged in it.
keep
Keep your
engaged or just
brain
have
in the
things
game.
that you come to you that you're like,
Right.
oh God, yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
every show does that because no shows are the same. So it's not like I'm just churning out the same shit every time. It's,
Right.
there is new challenges on all of them, but finding, I don't know, a challenge that kind of stumps me or,
Yeah.
whatever is so I would argue that perhaps trying to take a show in a venue that is not complete is definitely a challenge and makes it quite hard. And that was well,
Yeah. So, so this was a purpose-built
it was a
facility,
built
right?
venue
Right.
in Canary Wharf, which is sort of
Right.
not in central London,
Not
but
right.
within London, but just off to the
Right.
side. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, purpose-built venue, new show, lots of special effects, lots of illusions, lots of uh flying and fighting and as you would expect.
Yeah.
And yeah, and sort of all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was always going to be challenging. It was always going to be tricky. It was always going to be, whatever. I think the additional sort of bit where like
Yeah.
it wasn't done made it
Yeah.
quite hard to do it. But we got there in the end and the show's running and it's fine.
Yeah.
And I think coming away from it, I learned so much about, like the sort of challenges that I was faced with and the working
Yeah.
conditions and our working conditions weren't always great, which is something that happens a lot. Like even when we're in a normal theater that's been built, we're in some bar front of house, because I set up like my whole workshop and everybody's on site and I've got
Uh-huh.
everything there. Maybe we're in some like shitty bar with like no natural light and, so working conditions, how you set up your working conditions, but also making sure that your team like that you always have to stay positive, even in the face of like not
Yeah.
great. Because if you start to lose it, then they're going to start to lose it, and then the work doesn't happen, and then everybody, so you like
Right.
maintaining that morale in the face
Right.
of absolute chaos is again, it's another part of my job. Like I
Right.
literally do
Cheerleader.
nothing fun but like spreadsheets and like morale check. Like it's yeah. Um yeah, so that was really challenging to, and to also churn out the work in not ideal workspaces as well. Where does everybody work? Where do you go? Where do you do,
Yeah.
whatever. It was all very challenging, but we got
Yeah.
it in the end.
But I got there.
We got there. It's all right. And then afterwards, I did like a little play in a little theater in North London that fed us lunch, and it was lovely. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, life's okay again.
Well, and that gives again, that gives balance too,
Yeah.
right? Of the huge, oh my gosh, how are we going to? And then also the like, yeah,
Just
this
nice.
nice
Yeah.
little show
Yeah,
that,
you can't,
right.
I want to do all the musicals. I want to do all the big show. You want to do that, but the reality is that you can't. There's not enough time.
Right.
A, you've I don't know. You're also not suited to do all of them. Like that's the other thing is there are other supervisors that are suited to do the job that I'm, like it all sort of works like that. But also you just need like a rest. Like they are emotionally taxing. They can be emotionally taxing. And I think if
Yeah.
you like are always at that level, then, you know, and I've been there, like I was there at several points last year of
Yeah.
just like so overwhelmed and so just, whatever. But then knowing that there's like a light at the end of the tunnel and maybe that's the best part
Still,
of theater.
it's still a
Maybe
little
that's the
open.
best part of my job is that like it is always temporary.
Right,
Like no matter how, like we will eventually open the show. Like there is never, I mean, I'm
right.
going to say this, but somebody will probably fact check me on this. But if there's never been a show that went all the way through tech and then just didn't open, maybe. I don't know. So maybe
Well,
somebody's going to fact, this is going to be a thing. This is like a
well,
thing for all the students.
yeah, I was like, pre-pandemic, I would have said that was true, but
This is true. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, yeah, we left
Maybe
one
it
on
has.
stage for 6 months, so
On them. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
um,
So yeah, so we do always get there in the end. So that's the thing is that
yeah,
you
yeah,
know that it's going to end, and that's like part of the growth. Because sometimes you do shows that's awful, and you're like, I just want it to be to the end. And then sometimes you do shows that are lovely, and you don't want it to end because you've created these amazing,
yeah.
you've got this amazing relationship and bond and friendships, and and then you move on to the next one, and you're like, oh, I really miss
You want to go
that.
back?
I want
Yeah,
to go back. I want to be with my friends
yeah,
again. So
that's
excited.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question.
Hmm.
So these three that we've just talked about in particular, Harry Potter, Stranger Things, Hunger Games,
Hmm.
have huge fandoms to them, right?
Yes,
There are people who take these shows very, very seriously.
I
These
sure do.
um how do you, again, do you feel that sense of like I have to make this like it is in the movie because or the TV show or what, because of that connection?
Um,
Or do you approach it from this is a different production telling a different story?
Well, I mean, on a whole, that sort of decision is kind of out of my hands.
Right.
Like that decision of where the sort of, where the show is going in that regard is sort of
Is
made by
it
people
the
with much
director,
higher
right?
salaries than me.
Producers.
So then it's
Yes.
just me sort of following along. So obviously that,
Yeah.
Potter and Stranger Things were prequels. They were not the actual thing. We were not trying to
Right.
recreate anything. There is the scene in Stranger Things that is a recreation of the dining room scene where Henry
Uh-huh.
kills his mother. So that one we obviously were
Uh-huh.
like, it has to be exactly the same as that scene
Yeah.
because it's a duplicate, to her costume, the lamps, the sideboard, the custom, we've made like the
Right.
sideboard was like 8 grand for that because it was like handmade to look exactly like the one that they had or whatever. Um,
Uh-huh.
so on that one, Hunger Games is different because that was a recreation of the first film. So it was that sort of script, which is
Right.
adapted to the stage. So that one we felt we had to be a bit more, what's going on here? Uh, it's because I'm so like handsy. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
So that one we felt we had to be a bit more true to the things that were in the film. But again,
Yeah.
the sort of conceptual idea of that show going into, something like the costume design or, the set design and none of those things were exact replicas of the film as well. Those were all new sort of ideas. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really about trying to copy the film, but it was also about trying to find things like I'm quite into like the Easter eggs or the things that
Yeah.
someone might trying to sort of tie in that sort of fandom, which is really important
Mhm.
because if you ignore it, people freak out. So
Right.
you have to sort of, trying to tie them in. So it's, using the same flowers in the train that they had in the train for there. Like, did anybody notice? I don't know, but that's what it is. And, and
Yeah.
like there's these like trolleys of food. And so we sort of all the different foods that were ever mentioned in the books and in the film and shown or whatever. So we have like recreation bits of that, things onto there.
Yeah.
But all of that is like, does anybody notice? I don't know. Does anybody notice it's orange chicken? I don't know. Like it, but it's like
Yeah.
it's stuff that I do, but it also
Right.
helps guide me more than anything. It gives me sort of a guide to be able to feel like I'm following
Uh-huh.
something and helping something.
Right.
Stranger Things was quite interesting because then they took some stuff from our show,
Yes, I was gonna say if
TV
anybody
show.
if you've watched this last season,
Yes.
there is the flashback to the school play, and it
Yeah.
is the production of Oklahoma that happens in the stage show.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yes. So that was quite cool. And that was quite like, what are you going to do? And, that
yeah,
never happens though. That is like such a rarity. That
yeah,
whole, yeah, that was such a
yeah,
rarity.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Potter was weird because at the time when we did it, it was wholly separate from Warner Brothers.
Uh-huh.
So the only things that we could go back to and use on that were anything that was referenced directly in the text and nothing that was a visual or anything that came from the
The film.
film franchise. So we had to be completely different. So that's why the house banners are different, why the wands are different, why all of that stuff is,
Yeah.
it's in the same world, but it is
Right.
different from the Warner Brothers version. Now it's all owned
Right.
by Warner Brothers. Nobody cares. It's fine.
Right.
Like we could have just done it, but yeah, at the time. So that was quite tricky as well, making sure that you're sticking to things that were very specifically mentioned in the text. I think costume
Yeah.
probably struggled the most with that because there were like mentions of things, but it couldn't be the same. Um, so yeah, so we just making sure that we weren't like I didn't watch any of the films before I did it because of that, because I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't want to like taint
Right. You didn't want to
myself,
have that in your head.
have that image in my head, and like I didn't go to Harry Potter World, and I didn't. People were like, "Oh, did you do all this research?" I was like, "Absolutely not." Like,
Right.
you can't do that because it like messes with you somehow. So
Yeah, I think that's I never want my first step towards design and show to be like, let me watch the original Broadway production.
I appreciate,
Even
yeah,
then it's there.
yeah. But
And
like you said, there
hard
are
to unring
elements
that
though that
bell,
are
you know?
embedded in that show. There are always going to be
Right.
things that you're like, oh, the dress has to be red, but that's because it's referenced in throughout the whole sort of thing.
Right.
Uh, yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's always a I don't know, that there's always that tension of like audience expectation
mhm.
versus creating,
Yeah,
And I think
making your own thing. And
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah. But the fan base thing is hard, and it's really like scary when you're making the show, when you're doing, that was the thing on Stranger Things, because we were writing it as we were doing it, and we were chopping and changing, and things were always happening, and it was all sort of back to like, we'd literally do a scene, and then they'd be like, no, we can't do that because in season two, somebody said this, and this goes against that canon, and like that,
yeah,
and you're like, all right, I'll rewrite that scene. That's out.
yeah,
Off we go. Like next
yeah,
one.
yeah.
So
I got to see Stranger Things when
yeah.
I was in London a few years ago, and I have to say the audience energy
Hmm.
was a fan energy.
Yeah.
Um, with the title,
It's not a show for like casual theater goers. I do
no,
you know what I mean? Like in
no,
general, like there's some
right,
insane, I don't know what the statistic is, so I don't want to quote it, but there's an insane amount of first time theater goers going to that show
yeah,
because of the love of the show and because, whatever. But it
right,
is drawing in not your typical theater
right.
crowd. So
Which is, I think also like it's a really maybe we are creating some new audience members there, right?
yeah,
By
100%.
engaging people where they are and what their interests are, people who maybe
Yeah, I
wouldn't
mean, I
like,
saw it all the time, and I'd be outside the theater, and the
yeah,
family would be walking by, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh," the tween teenies would be like, "Stranger Things," whatever, and then they'd come in and buy a ticket, and like, I don't necessarily think that family would have ever done the same had they walked by, I don't know, Hamilton, or
right,
you know what I mean,
right,
like,
yeah,
I don't think they would have done that, but because the show has that sort of fan base, or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
it's yeah.
So as you were going through the process of teching that show, um,
Mm.
there was a film crew following you. What was
Oh,
that like?
Gee, the film man. Um, it was well, do you know what? So we didn't actually know. Like nobody knew what he was doing. They were like, we're just putting this film crew out. We don't know. Like at that point, we didn't know if the show was gonna be a success. We didn't know if it was gonna be good. We didn't know like we were all
Yeah,
like, God, what if this turns into the Fire Festival documentary? Like
uh,
we had like no idea
right,
what we were making and what was going to come out of it. I think we all
right,
knew we were doing something really special. We all knew we were doing something really cool, and it was going to be cool and whatever. But I think it was like, what are we all going to look like in this
uh-huh,
documentary? So yeah, it was fine. I think that my job in general, given like in that process, because when we were in workshops and whatever, I wasn't necessarily always in the room because I had a carpentry workshop and I had a prop workshop, and we were all sort of, so I was kind of in and out, which means I was a bit more available and around for this camera guy because, whatever. So he was like around a lot. Like he weirdly became like one of my team. Like there were points where I'd be like, I need you to hold this for me while I'm doing, you know what I mean? Like I like got involved. Um, no, it was great. It was hard to know. It was great. It was really nice. I think in the end, obviously we watched it. It was great. It was fine. I think all through the whole time, I thought it was such a crazy process, and you never get the opportunity to like take documentation of that. Like
Right.
it's wild that we have like, gazillions of hundreds of thousands of hours of footage of
Right.
us putting that show on
Yeah.
that we all forget, because when you get to the end of a tech, you either remember the bad bits, you remember the good bits, you remember some fuzzy gray area between the two.
Right.
But there are moments that are really, 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 really hard that you get through and you kind of forget about them. And there
Yeah.
are moments that are really fun that you forget about because of the.
Because of the hard moments. Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
it was quite good to see again. It was really nice. I thought they did a really good job sort of like saying how the process was and dealing with
Yeah.
the changes and dealing with how, that's the thing. When you have this flexible script, the
Yeah.
things are constantly changing. And because of the writer's strike, which was happening at the time, so they were supposed to be filming season 5 when we were setting the show up here. They
Right.
had to delay it, which is why it's now just come out. So it meant that the canon was like quite a bit loose in terms of what we could do and how it would affect season 5 and things that we
Uh-huh.
could say and like, all of that stuff. It was just, I think that was the other thing. The difference between Potter is that Potter's series was complete. That story was done. You can't change that and you have to just work with it. Whereas this, we
Yeah.
could like, oh, you want him to do that? All right, let's do this. And like,
Yeah.
it was such a sort of movable feast across the whole thing. So, uh, I thought they did a really good job, like showing us that and showing the audience that it's not, theater is hard, theater is rewarding, theater is like
Right.
so rewarding in so many ways, but it's also really hard. But then
Yeah.
equally, remembering that it's also not as hard as a lot of other jobs in the world. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other jobs in the world that are equally as
Right.
hard, but I did have people who have these jobs, who have these sort of, they're like doctors and like,
Right.
whatever. They have like real jobs, solicitor.
Life and death in their
Yeah,
hands.
like
Right. Yeah.
literally like life and death situations. And they were
Right.
like, I was really stressed out watching that documentary. I was
Even though you knew how it was going to turn out.
like, I'm really stressed out for you. Like you
Yeah.
looked really awful. Like and so many people were like, you look terrible. I was like, it's fine.
Um,
Anyway, yeah.
I have to, I mean, yeah, I think that idea of just having that documentation is really cool.
It's great.
Um,
Like I wish I could see it all. I wish I
right.
could
See
like I
every,
wish
yeah.
I wish that someone could just edit me down like this sounds really full of myself, like all of my moments, just so
Right.
that I could relive my moment.
Right.
I'm sure there are other moments as well, but moments that I was in, just because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's love, it's great. And I don't think I'll ever do another show. I don't imagine I'll ever do another show
That
like
has that same
that
level
has that
of
same sort of thing. Maybe
documentation.
I
Yeah.
will, maybe I won't,
It
like
was mostly like watching the Mary side eye. Like when you just are like this way, you're like, I was like,
there were so many, everybody watched it was
I've
like,
seen
that
that.
was
I've seen that
classic
look.
Mary. That was classic Mary. Like me
Yeah.
just being like, I don't even know if it works. Just get out of my face.
I think it is I think one of the things that you really do see in that is that it is a creative process, right?
Yeah.
And just because um these are people who are at the top of their game, right? These are the best of the best,
Yeah.
but they still have no idea what they're doing.
No idea.
Um you're figuring it, it's about, are you a person who can figure it out
Yeah.
and make a plan and move
Yeah.
forward and use your experience and make the best choice?
Yeah. Might not be the right choice, but
Right.
making the choice is the thing you have to do. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
when shit gets hard, because shit gets hard, when shit gets hard, how do you deal with it? Do you become
Yeah.
angry? Do you become like whatever? Do you become a recluse? Do you whatever? Do you like take a deep breath, roll your
Right.
eyes, and then come up with a plan?
Yeah.
Like that is like
Right.
yeah, and I've had shows where I've been like, I just need to go outside. I had a day on Stranger Things where there was like all this shit was going wrong. And I was like, I just need to go outside. And I just like went outside and I walked for like 20 minutes and I came back in and I was like, now I have a plan. Like
Yeah.
I just had to like go away, think about it all through, not in that room and
Right.
come back again. And I think that is important, and that's why all those people are in that room. That's why everybody's there creating that show together because, in any nobody loses their shit and throws their toys out of the pram and free, you know
Right.
what I mean? Everybody's there for this like sort
Right.
of common goal and working together and everyone can say, I have this idea, and someone else can say, I have this idea, and they can bounce back off each other, and they can, the ego is not there, the whatever. You're just in it to make good theater. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah. And that team was incredible at that. That was one of the most delightful sort of creative teams that I've ever worked with. And
Yeah.
the sort of empowerment, the empowerment that we had, but the way that they led and the, which I think was all very clear in the documentary of,
Yeah.
the way that Stephen just led us, I don't know, towards, I don't know.
Yeah.
He probably could have led us into a brick wall and we all would have gone. He's quite he's
Well, that's,
quite charming, he
right.
is. So he's
Right.
done everything.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think, like I said, I think sometimes young people have this, you know, sense that, maybe the director is making every decision, and really it's that you're empowering people to make
Yep.
decisions.
Yep.
And it sounds like
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
definitely
and working and collaborating together to make the decision. He would
right.
say, "I want this," and we'd all go away and come back and be like, "All we can offer you is this," and he's like, "Good enough."
Yeah.
That's great. You know what I mean? Because it's not
Right.
like maybe we'd improved his idea, changed his idea, whatever. But he, always receptive, always open, always, that show also had a very, uh, like we were led technically really strong. Our technical manager, production manager was really strong. Sonia Friedman is a very strong producer in terms of her being there and being
Yeah.
present. And when things are going right, she just chills in the back, and when things are going wrong, she's there and
Yeah.
she's whatever. And I think all of that kind of together makes a really good process and can sort of, I don't know, it makes great work,
Yeah.
and it makes people have a great time, because I feel like if you're not going to have a good time with it, like if it's going to make your
Right.
life miserable, then what's the
Right.
point? It's not actually that good, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, sometimes we forget how lucky we are that we get to, um
Do
play
skits.
play
Yeah,
for a living, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I know we don't, and I know that there's lots of money at stake, and I know it,
right.
a lot of people have a lot at stake in these shows, especially these kind of bigger shows and these,
Yeah.
whatever. So you do have to take it seriously. You do have to do all that stuff, and you do have to, support the actors as best you can, support the team, support
Right.
everybody. But yeah, ultimately, like if you would have ever told me that Girl from Sullivan was gonna go from like Little Theater on the Square to like do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just not
Right.
yeah, it's
Yep.
crazy. It's not the
Yeah.
norm, and like really lucky to still be here, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Well, and I think, I like, a lot of that is what you bring to it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Mary's a good time, and
She's very good time. She's good value for money at a party.
yeah. Um, so,
Yeah. Or tech. She's also good value for
oh,
money
it's
at
a good value attack, right?
also good value at tech. Yeah.
Um, I think that that can't be overestimated, I guess, is, uh you know, when I take students to Disney World and they get to meet with people who are, you know, muckety mucks in Imagineering, and of course the
Yes.
students want to like, what's the secret, right? What's the secret?
Yeah.
And it's, be somebody that I want to have on the team.
Yeah.
Be somebody I want to work with every day.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like, I know it's really cliche. I'm sure you could like name off, pick your battles, man. Like there are some
Yeah.
days like, you're always gonna have to work with people you don't like. You're always gonna like that is what you do. And
Yeah.
when you choose to sort of throw down, and when you choose just to be like, all right, it's fine. And biting your tongue, hard work for
Yeah.
me sometimes, but I do it. And it like the joy of it, like you
Right.
yeah, you're all in this together, and
Right.
you have to remember that always. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And be
Yeah.
fun and be enjoyable and be somebody that they want to see in the morning. Like I'm quite
Yeah.
well, as much as I hate it, like literally I'd be walking to work every morning and I'm like on the train, I look like a slapped ass. Like I'm like so miserable all the way there. And then the moment I walk through the door to the theater, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's on. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's
Right.
on. It's like just if you walk in with a shit attitude, your day is not going to be great. So you
Right.
just Yeah.
right.
Even
And
if
you're
it's
bringing
vague.
that to other people too, who
And
maybe
you're bringing it to, yeah, exactly. And
weren't,
if you approach
you
them,
know,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
if you approach them nicely or funnily or, whatever, and not sort of with your backup and not,
right,
you know, it would have like, you get a different result and
right,
you have to and it's really hard. It's really hard when you're stressed out. It's really hard when you're under a lot of pressure. It's really hard not to lose
yeah,
yourself in those moments. And like, it doesn't always happen, and it doesn't, and I think, I do lose myself. I do have moments. I do, as I've always have. Like, it's fine. But then the other thing too that I think is then like kind of going back on them, like then I'll go back to the person. I'll be like, sorry, I was a jerk earlier. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and
was not my best moment.
it's just like, that wasn't just like, I was really tired. I really needed to go. Yeah, like I really
Yeah,
needed a snack. I really just needed a snack right then, and you caught me at a wrong time, and I'm really sorry. And then kind of like work through the situation, and I think that is like at the utmost sort of important because I've been on shows where things departments are fractured or creative teams are fractured or members of the whole team are and it doesn't help anybody. It's just not, yeah. So that's what I do. I laugh through it. That's kind of what I am known for. It's just cracking the probably most inappropriate joke at the wrong time, but it breaks the silence and it does the thing. Yeah, but then when things get tough and things whatever, then I'm like also, like it can be funny until a point, and then
right,
you got to really like get in.
yeah.
So
Lock in is
lock in,
lock in. You
sit
have to
down,
lock in. Right.
lock in. Okay, is that
Right.
what the kids
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
it now?
That's what the youths say. So,
You remember that, right?
yeah. So, well, Mary, thank you so much for joining us today and
You're
for
very
sharing a little
welcome.
insight into your world.
Yeah, yeah. I hope it was useful and not, don't know.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely. I think I learned some new things today, and I hope other people did too. So,
excellent.
thank you.
Right. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.